Hi, everyone, and welcome to Software Success. I'm Ashley Jones from Dime by OESD, and as always, here on Software Success, we talk about all things embroidery software from the Dime by OESD line of software. So I love sharing my knowledge with you, and I love stepping outside the box using my software for a variety of different things. It's definitely my favorite tool in my embroidery studio, and I certainly couldn't live without it. So, and I want you guys to feel the same way and be able to use your software. So, if you haven't been here before, or even if you have, tell me over in the chat where you're viewing from. We'll give a few more minutes to let some other people join, and then we'll jump right into our topic. So, while you are commenting over there, also, I would love to hear from you. Anything that you want to see. We took a survey on our Facebook group, and I've collected those ideas, but keep the ideas coming. I've used those ideas that were submitted in our group to pull from for today's episode and then also upcoming episodes. So if there's something that you want to see or learn, make sure that you're letting me know, because I love doing different things here and getting you guys the information that you're looking for. So let's say hi to some people joining before we get started here. So I see we've got Susie Q. Thanks for being here from Oregon. Patricia Hale, good to see you from the Adirondacks. Oh, beautiful, beautiful area of the country this time of year, the Adirondacks. From Paris, Ontario. Thanks for being here, Regina King. My friend Eileen Reichert from Maryland. Thanks for being here. Linda Johnson. So good to see you. Christy Kale. Nice to have you here. Cindy Clark. Joyce Gillett. Thanks for being here. My goodness, all these names I'm starting to recognize. You guys were like a big embroidery software family. I love it. Callie, good to see you as always. Judy Jones, we really probably are related, from Idaho. Thanks for being here, April. BJ, good to see you. Caroline Milstead. Thanks for being here as well. So many familiar names. So always good to see all of you guys. And I know that you really enjoy using your software. Hopefully we've got some people here that are new and learning as well. So you guys know Reen from Embroidery Gardens. She's definitely accustomed to using our software, and Dawn from Creative Applique. Oh, Dawn, I love your new logo. So really cute. So, okay. So I think we've got quite a few people that are here already. Thanks everybody for being here. St. James City, Florida. So Shirley, nice to see you. Okay, so today's topic was a topic that I partially pulled from the list of topics that people suggested or that wanted to know more about, and I just kind of turned it into something a little bit more. So some of the things that are requested are just like one particular feature that is, really quick to show or create, and so I really just kind of added to this. So what I did here, so one of the requests was about creating a motif, your own custom motifs, which we actually kind of talked about this a few episodes ago in relation to the like creating a custom quilting design. But I'm going to talk to you again today about creating that. It's a feature in our Perfect Embroidery Pro. But those motif stitches are actually great for doing embossing designs. So I thought that they kind of related here. And not only embossed designs, but also tacking down that nap like we do in an embossed design is really also good for other uses as well. Like if we have, say, satin text on a plush fabric and we don't want the fur or the nap to show through our stitches, then we put down something we call a nap blocker. So that's another way to handle fabric with the nap. So we'll talk about those. And I feel like that's more of a utility stitch, whereas the embossed design is really kind of creative way to use the pile as part of a design element of your project. And then we'll create, like I said, I'll create a custom motif stitch, which is very similar to what we've done before when we've created the custom quilting. And so we'll talk about that. And I'll talk about how to get that into your software where you can use it repetitively. So let's talk about the two kind of topics that we're going to talk about is the nap blocker and an embossing type design. So these are two types of designs that I feel like I'm always looking for whenever I'm using a fabric with a nap. Not every single time, but I do really love to have, if I'm doing a regular embroidery design, I like to have a nap blocker behind. The nap blocker tacks down the nap of the fabric so that whatever embroidery design you put on top of that, in this case satin stitches for the word nap blocker, it's going to permanently hold the nap down so that your design looks great for the life of the item. And then the embossing designs, this is where we have a design that's got a fill stitch to it, and it's really close together stitches. So either and actually a little bit more open than a regular fill stitch, but it would fill that area and press the nap down, and then the nap would puff up in the area of the design. So in this case, the design around the word emboss would actually compress the nap or tack it down. And then the letters EMBOSS, the nap would stick up, showing that that's actually the part of the design. So these two techniques, I want to talk about different ways that you can create them and which of our software have the features to do so. And also, I will talk about creating a custom motif that you can use for these fill areas if you want. Okay. So if you've never seen either one of these particular techniques, let me first go under my camera and show you just a couple of samples so that you can see it in person. So a nap blocker stitch is like this here. And so I moved too fast. My camera got blurry. So let me see if I can get it to focus here. Maybe. It just doesn't want to do its thing today. Maybe, maybe, maybe. Nope, still blurry. Oh my goodness. There we go. Oh my goodness, it's slower than I am today. Okay, so here you can see there are some white stitching behind the red letters. So that's what we call a nap blocker. You may have seen some people refer to it as a lay down or a knockdown stitch. And so what it's doing is I refer to this as a utility stitch because it's not meant to be attractive. It's well, and it is attractive, but you know what I mean? It's not part of the focus. That's what I was trying to say. And so it tacks down the nap, and like in this case, this faux fur, so that whenever I remove like my water soluble stabilizer, the fur is not poking up or coming through these small areas of my letters. So like of the L here, the E, and the S. When that happens, it kind of hides your stitches. So that's one thing. And then also over washing, especially with towels, sometimes the nap will stick actually between your satin stitches. And this kind of creates a permanent foundation so that you don't have that happen. So again, you may have heard it called a lay down technique or a knockdown technique, and we refer to it as nap blocker in our software. So I think that name really says it all. But on anything with a pile, so if you're stitching on terry cloth, on this faux fur, even like a plush fabric like fleece, doesn't really have a tall pile, but you can still use that to give a smooth texture. And then also embossing is the other thing. So embossing is usually a design that has the area that tacks down the nap, flattens it, and then the nap shows through, like you see here, in the main part of the design, and that's actually what's making the design. Often the design is stitched in the same color as the fabric, so it's a very subtle design, and that is what I did here. This is literally white on white, and so I'm hoping that you guys are seeing this okay on the camera. But this is what embossing is. So this is a nap blocker with the utility stitch behind the embroidery, and this, where the nap of the fabric actually is part of the design, this is called nap blocker, or I'm sorry, embossing design. So this is, we refer to embossing. Now, embossing, you can use a different color thread if you want, like I've done here. And you can see that this part of the design, you can see my nap is sticking up here in my little pumpkin. And I have some different areas of embroidery that are embellishing the pumpkin. And then this part here is really what's flattening out the nap so that it's really plush or puffed up in the main part of my design. So we're going to talk about those two different designs today and how you can create them in your software. Of course, you guys know us at Dime. We always have some ways of creating designs that are just like a one click. That's the beauty of our Dime embroidery softwares. We have a lot of options to just click and make something happen. But a lot of you guys have programs that maybe don't have the one click option. So I like to show multiple ways to create stuff. So I'm going to do that today with the nap blocker and the embossing. And then we'll talk about creating that custom motif design that was a viewer request. So, okay, so I'm going to head over to my software, and then let's talk about these two designs before we create them. So the first one being the nap blocker, I'm just going to watch my slow redraw, and we can see this stitch out. So when you create a design that has the nap blocker behind it, the nap blocker should stitch out first, just like this. Now this looks like a solid fill stitch on the screen, but it's actually not a complete solid fill. It kind of has a little bit of an open density, but it's going to tack down the nap, and then you would stitch the main part of your design over top of it. Now, in this case of this design, I only use text, but this can be used with a design itself, and I'll show you that coming up. Okay. And then an embossing design, you can see here, it is stitching everywhere but the letters, and that would compress the nap in those areas and allowing it to puff up or poke through the letters. Okay, so now both of these designs work great for anything with a nap or a pile, but it's not the only thing you can do. These are just things that I use regularly when I'm stitching on something with a pile. And so I just wanted to share those with you. Okay, so let's start with a nap blocker design. And I'm actually going to use a design that is going to work great in both instances. Okay, so I am using all of my software together today, but I'm going to tell you once we see this where these features come from. Okay, so first, let's go grab a design. So I'm going to use a design that's part of my special FX software. And let's do, say, this one here. This is kind of simple design. And also this will allow me to show you some editing capabilities. So if you're kind of new to our software, this will kind of give you a little bit more than just how to create the designs we're talking about. Okay, so this design is grouped together. So I'm going to ungroup it. You can either click that on the toolbar or it's under your right mouse click menu. When we ungroup, that means we can select these components individually, okay, or these objects. So I'm going to click and drag a box around this half over here, and then just press the delete on my keyboard. This is really slow. There we go. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. Now, this particular design has an artwork outline all the way around it. So if I go over here to my sequence view and I hide my pumpkin, the stitches of my pumpkin. So if I hide that, oh my goodness, this is so slow. So sometime today it will click or not. I just want to click to hide it. If that doesn't work, we're going to select it and just move it out of the way. All right, so we're going to just move it out of the way. Okay, so I've selected the pumpkin part here, and if I move it, you can see that my outline around that pumpkin automatically, it actually was already in this design, but we actually need that to do the embossing part of the design. Okay, so I'm going to do an undo. and put that back into position. And I'll show you what to do if your design does not have that artwork. And then I want to delete the artwork over here for these little swirls. So I need to use my break up option, and then I can select those and delete it. So break up is a way that you can take an object that has been combined into one object and separate it out into different parts and pieces. And so that's kind of what I did there. And so now I've got my pumpkin, the actual stitches, and I have the outline still. Okay. So now this little pumpkin here, I think that would make a really cute embossed design, but it also would just be a really cute embellishment on a towel of some sort if you wanted. Okay, so if you want to put that on a towel, you're gonna see, even though you don't want it to be embossed, you're gonna see the nap of the fabric poke through all of these open areas. Okay, so this might be a good design to put a nap blocker behind it so that your fabric is flat for this design. So to create the nap blocker automatically, this is a feature in Perfect Embroidery Pro and Word Art and Stitches. You're going to select your object, do a right mouse click, and under Utility, choose Create Nap Blocker. It's going to ask you the distance. I actually prefer the default, so then I just click OK, and it automatically does it for me. Okay, and then it comes in using this first color, but you're going to choose a thread color that is closest to the fabric that you're stitching it on, because again, you want this to just be like a utility stitch. It's really not part of the focus of your design. Okay, so that's how you would create a nap blocker that is an automatic option in Word Art and Stitches and Perfect Embroidery Pro. Okay, so now embossing, I'm going to undo this. Embossing requires two shapes. It requires a inner shape and an outer shape. Okay, and so we're going to be using the shape of our pumpkin. So I'm going to turn this back to orange, and I've got my outline here. So I'm just going to move my outline off to the edge here so we can see what happens all by itself. Okay. So an embossed design, it requires an inner artwork shape and an outer artwork shape. So my inner artwork shape is my pumpkin. The outer artwork, we've got lots of built-in decorative frames, but I'm actually just going to do a circle here. And so I'm using my artwork tool to draw the circle around my pumpkin shape. And then I'm going to select both of these together and just use my alignment tools to center that up. Okay, so now with embossing, I want the stitches to be in between the pumpkin shape and the circle. So I would fill this with that motif shape. Okay, so now if I fill either one of these with the motif shape, so over here in my properties area, I've got my effects panel, and I can just click on my motif option to fill. When I do that, it's going to fill my entire circle, whereas I want it to fill the area in between. So this filled my pumpkin and the circle. Okay, so I'm going to do an undo and select both of them. In order for it to fill in between, I want to combine them as one object. Okay, so whenever you combine them, it now sees it as one object, and I can tell that because in my sequence view, it's one artwork instead of two. So now when I convert this to a motif fill, it's going to fill the area in between the pumpkin and the circle. Okay, and then I could also put a stitch around the outside if I want by clicking to change that to a still stitch. So now I need a copy of that if I'm going to do it, but let's move our pumpkin over here, and so we can see what this is going to look like. Okay, so I'm going to select this. And of course, I would have left this right on top of the design if I was going to do it, but I wanted you guys to see what's happening. And so then now I'm just going to move that into place there so that we can kind of see what it looks like if you leave the detailed part of the design, and then you can change that to be all one color if you want. Okay, so often embossed designs, and I would probably bring this to the front because I see I didn't get my stitching lined up. So let's just do the move to front so that the satin stitches last, so you'd have that nice finished edge on your design. Okay, so usually embossed designs are one single color. And so you can, definitely, make it multiple colors if you'd like, but that's entirely up to you. Now to cover these edges here, I probably would copy and paste my circle before I, combined it, but now that I've already combined it, I can actually turn that into a artwork stitch. So I'm gonna go back over here and put that into a well, and actually let's do this. This is what I would do at home. So I'm going to do a still stitch. So all I did was copy it and paste it, and I made that same part of the design a still stitch. Let me move my pumpkin out of the way again. But by doing that, I've got this inside area, which by itself, that's a cute design, right? But if I'm going to use this part of my pumpkin, then I want this to be just the regular stitching around because the satin stitch of my pumpkin design is going to cover it. So let's take that design here and break it up. That'll allow me to select the pumpkin inner part separately and then just delete it. Okay. And then we'll do this again, and I'll do it in the steps that would make more sense. But sometimes I don't always go in the right order whenever I'm working at home. So I just want you guys to see that you can there's more than one way to do stuff. So, right, there's more than one way to quilt a block, to stitch a seam, and so there's always more than one way to get to this result as well. So, but isn't that cute? So that would be an example of an embossed design that you can create. Now, this motif shape right here, that is something that we use for a lot of different types of design. So in this case, it's kind of close together. It looks like a decorative sewing machine stitch that's filled up an area. You can increase the density of it, and it looks like a quilting stitch, which we've seen in other instances I'll show you. But these motifs, you can actually change the look of it. But what I do recommend, if you're using these motifs for this particular technique of an embossed design, I would choose something or either adjust the pattern length where it's fairly close together. Otherwise, your nap's going to poke through this area of your design as well. And you don't want that to. You want that to be tight enough so that it tacks down and compresses the nap so that your part of your design that puffs up is here in the center. So hopefully that makes sense. So, okay, so that is an embossed design and a design for a nap blocker. And so let me show you a couple of other ways to create this. So if you have if you are an owner of the Special FX software, the Special FX is has a built-in embossed option, and that you're going to just take your two designs and then just click that button and it does all the work for you. Okay, and it even will automatically add that outline stitch. You don't have to do all the breaking up. So let me show you that. So I'm going to choose, let's choose a decorative frame here or a border. And actually, oh, I even have a better option. So let's go over here to the built-in designs and choose one of these borders maybe. So maybe something decorative like this, or maybe this one. Here, let's try this one. And so here's a frame around the outside, and I'm going to put a design in the center. So I'm going to go back to my Special FX. These are just built-in designs to my Special FX. And this already has the artwork around the frame and the design. So let's go maybe to Thanksgiving. Oh yeah, this cute little pumpkin here. See how that fits in that area. Oh my gosh, that's almost like a perfect size. Okay, so now when I select everything together, and my Special FX has a built-in emboss fill, so all I do is click the emboss. It asks me if it wants a decorative stitch around the outside. I'm going to say no, because it's got this stitch for the design, and it's got the satin here, and then I can choose from a few different types of fills, and I click OK, and then you just give it a minute to do all of its work, and it will automatically populate and make that an embossed design. Isn't that cool? So I absolutely love that. And again, you might want to select everything and make it all one color to stitch out. Usually that's what we do with embossed design. So isn't that beautiful? Oh, I just love that, how that turned out. So, so Special FX has the one-click option, but certainly if you have another dime program that has built-in motifs like My Quilt Embellisher or either Perfect Embroidery Pro, then you can create embossed designs as well. So, okay, so now let's pause right there before we go to the next part, and then we'll answer some questions and see what we need to talk about. So I'm going to just kind of back up a little bit so that I can get to some of the first questions that were asked. And looks like Cindy Clark says, can you convert artwork to freestanding lace in one of the artworks? Yes, you can. That's My Lace Maker. That's a great question. Yes, you bring in the artwork and then just convert it to lace grid, and then you can embellish it. That grid's designed to hold together. So yes, Cindy, My Lace Maker is that program. So really good question. All right, so just looking down here to see. And then Linda says she would like more instructions on projects for My Quilt Embellisher. So Linda, this embossing that we're talking about today can be done in My Quilt Embellisher, but I'll definitely put it on the list. If you can give me some more specifics of what you want to do with My Quilt Embellisher, then I'll definitely incorporate those ideas. It can do so much, it's hard to know exactly what you'd like to see. And then just scrolling down here. So Laura says, what software is being used? So Laura, I'm using all of mine together. It's really hard to separate out features because everybody has so many different features in the particular programs that they have. So I am using all of mine together, and then I'll let you know where the features come from. So currently I am using the motif fill, which is part of My Quilt Embellisher and Perfect Embroidery Pro. The Nap Blocker is part of Perfect Embroidery Pro and Word Art and Stitches. And this auto emboss option is part of Special FX. So, and then I've got that all written up. You can take a screenshot of that as well. And then Dalu said, sorry, I missed it. Where did you get the pumpkin from? Oh, so that pumpkin with the flowers is actually part of our Special FX software. It's just one of the built-in designs. I always like to try to use something that we have. We have so many designs built in, but Dalu, if you want to do an embossed design with a design that you have that's from an outside source, you can do that as well. And I'll show that when I go back over, but that particular pumpkin is from the Special FX software, the built-in design library. So good question. So, okay, so let's go back and see that if you want to bring in your own design that doesn't have an outline around it. So we'll do that. And if you, and then we'll talk about a little bit more about embossing options. Okay. So I'm going to start a new work page here. And let's create the embossing if you're bringing in an outside design. And then if you are want to create a nap blocker, if you maybe have another program that doesn't have the auto nap blocker and you want to create it, then we'll talk about how to do that manual as well. So let me look really quickly. Let's see what we've got here for a design that might be a good one to bring in and create an embossed design out of. So I'm just going to go to some of you guys know we're part of the OESD family now, and I absolutely love that I have all of these designs at my disposal. And so let's just see if I've got some options here of something that might be a good embossed design. So of course I haven't downloaded everything. There's so many thousands of designs. So, and if I don't find one quickly, we'll just use something else that I've got that will work. So what about this cute little car? Would you do it? Would you do an embossed design for a little kid's maybe bathroom? This is actually part of a growth chart. And so, but because it's applique, it would make a cute little embossed design. So I'm going to rotate this around. Okay. And once I've done that, I'm going to delete the parts I don't need. Okay, so we don't want for embossing, I'm going to ungroup it. I don't want the flag and the gear and the outside, because again, remember I said this is part of um, a bigger design that you would make with this little car. So I'm just going to delete what I don't want. And here is the design that I have. Now, if we did this like as a little embossed design, then the nap would be showing through where the applique fabric would normally be. Okay, so I'm going to group this together so that I don't lose my parts and pieces. Okay, so let's say that you bring in a design. It does not have an artwork outline around it, so that's where you want to create one. So for embossing, you want to create an outline. So under utility and create outline, depending on which software program you have, the create outline may be on your toolbar. Okay, but it's also under my right click menu. And I'm just going to lower this down to a 0.1 so that my outline is literally right at the edge of my stitching there, and then click OK. When you do that, it creates an artwork outline. And over here, I can see that I've got my shape and the artwork. And let me see if this is going to let me hide. There we go. Now it's working like it's supposed to. So there, I hide my design. So there's my outline. Okay. And let's now make another artwork around it. So remember, you need 2 artworks for embossing. So if I just do, say, a rectangle here, and I'm going to turn that on and then center everything up. So I'm going to select everything and then just use my center option. And whoops, undo. See how it didn't line up my car with the outline? So I'm going to select those 2, and then we want to group those together. And then we can center all of that with our square. Okay, so then I'm just going to do center, just like that. And then I'm going to resize a smidge smaller because that is like a 6-something inch design. So that'd be pretty big embossed design. And so now, remember, we want to combine our artwork outline with the outline square. Okay, so if I select both of them together, I'm going to use my combine tool. And then now when I fill that with the motif shape, so I'm going to go down here to my effects panel. I'm going to fill that with a motif stitch, and there you go. And then of course on this here, again, I could create the stitch around the outline. So if I copy, and actually let's do an undo, and I'll show you what you should do instead of doing what what I did twice. Okay, so before I combine them, if I do an undo, if I copy and paste my run stitch or my artwork outline here, so I'm going to break those up so I could just get to that one outline, and I'm going to copy and paste this. So copy and paste that one, and then let's just make it a different color here, and then take one of the rectangles and the outline of the car and combine them. So now when I fill that in, I also have that copy that I made that I can turn into a steel stitch, which is a satin or column stitch around the outside there. So, and it'll look, much cleaner. And then if you want this to be an embossed design, maybe you want to just switch that so that it's all a single color. So, isn't that cute? Oh, I just love that. So much fun. Okay, so those are the steps. So if you do have a design you want to do and you're bringing it from an outside source, then you want to create an outline around it, because you need an outline around your object and then the outline that is the border of the design. And in fact, this technique is something that I've actually shown before in a different way. Okay, so back last year in November, we talked about quilting around an embroidery design. So go back and watch this episode again. This was November of last year, and it was quilting around an embroidery design. But look at these examples. So here we talked about creating quilting around and a design, and this is the same thing we're doing today, other than making a quilting design, we are putting the stitches close together so that it'll tack down the nap of the fabric. This particular design that's in the center here is an applique. And so it actually would make a really cute embossed design as well. And so Perfect Embroidery Pro, you can do these quilting fills with your motifs. Let me back up here. The motifs, the contour stitch, the shape, the stippling, and the wave. That's what each of these are from Perfect Embroidery Pro. And if you put the density where it's tighter, it's going to compress the nap. And that is true for every one of these types of fills. We've been just using the decorative motif fills, but here, this shape fill, if you put those stitches closer together, it's going to do the same thing and compress the nap. Okay, so that's PEP. In my quilt embellisher, it has all of the same options. You can do the shape, contour, motif, stippling, but it also has 2 additional type of quilting fills, which is the advanced stippling, which is a whole list of different fill types, and also the echo. Again, any of these from my quilt embellisher, if you put the stitches closer together, which means you're going to lower the density because that's going to put your stitches closer together, it's going to compress the nap of your design. And that is a all in my quilt embellisher. And you can also do this with the Special FX. Now, we've seen the auto emboss option from Special FX, but also the Mylar and the chenille is rows of stitching to put over Mylar or to create faux chenille fabric. Again, if you just take any of those stitches and put the density lower so the stitches are closer together, it's going to make that embossed shape. So this just goes to show you that one technique might be something that we are thinking of, like making quilting around embroidery, but in the same exact case, a little bit of a change and the same features are making an embossed design. So knowing how to work your software really, just a few different things can really open up your embroidery world so much more, because some of these techniques overlap with just a couple of changes. So how cool is that? So when I was going back through some of the things that we showed in the past, then I saw that and I was like, oh my goodness, it's the same steps as what we're doing today. So go back and watch that episode. It was quilting around your embroidery machine. This was a great episode. Linda, I think it was, My Quilt Embellisher. This is a really good one for My Quilt Embellisher. So definitely check that out. That's a really good one. So, okay, so let's go back here and see what questions we've got. So Dalu said that my computer screen is frozen. So if there was something that was missed, let me know. It didn't seem frozen on my end, but if there was something that feel like it cut out or something, if you'll let me know specifically, then I can always go back and take a look at that. So or I can redo it for you if you want. So, and then Dalu, the first pumpkin, the one that is the that I removed the pieces from the side, that's also from Special FX as well. So both of those pumpkins came from the Special FX design library. So really good questions. And then just looking to see if we have other questions. So Paulana says, when you buy a design from outside, does our Soloris compensate for the stitches? So when you buy a design from the outside, so does our Soloris compensate for the stitches? So if you can give me a little more details on that, I'm not sure exactly what it is that you're asking. So Soloris is the embroidery machine. And so when you purchase a design from usually an outside source and you put it on a USB stick and take it to your embroidery machine to stitch it out, usually we stitch it as is. If you want to resize or reduce the size in your embroidery machine, it usually depends on your model of machine on whether or not it would recalculate the stitches. Maybe that's what you're asking, Paulana. And so the Soloris, because I actually own that machine, I do know there's an option to regenerate the stitches, but it just confirmed that that's exactly what you were wanting to know. So just put that in the chat and I'll answer. So, okay, so I don't see any other questions right now. So let's go over and then manually create a nap blocker option, and then we will create a motif stitch as well. So, all right, so I'm going to go back over to my software here. And so the nap blocker, if I go back over here, so remember, nap blocker is the loosely dense fill stitch that is going to tack the nap down. And so you can see that this shape follows along the shape of my text. That's the create outline again. And then we can fill it. If you don't have the built-in nap blocker, you can fill it with a motif or a fill stitch to get this nap blocker look, okay? Or nap blocker function, I should say. So let's do that. So I'm going to just choose, like, let's just do a monogram here. And then I'll choose a different, like a swirly little monogram option. Oh, that one would be a good one. Okay. And so, and I'll leave ABC. It's no concern on the actual letters. We just want to put this monogram on something with the nap. Okay. So if we did this, and depending on how plush your item is, it may get lost in the nap of the fabric. And so that's where the nap blocker would come into play. So remember, it's a utility, and nap blocker will do it automatically if you have Word Art and Stitches or if you have Perfect Embroidery Pro. But if you don't have one of those, then you want to create an outline. Okay, so if I go under utility and create outline, and you choose the distance, and you can increase that to whatever you want. The default for nap blocker, I think, is like a 0.15 or something like that, but it's really up to you. And I think that actually looks good. And so I'm going to say, okay. And then I want to fill that with a fill stitch. Now, Perfect Embroidery Pro has a fill stitch, but it also has the nap blocker, so you really don't have to use the Perfect Embroidery Pro to do this manually. But if you have My Quilt Embellisher or Special FX or or even cut and stitch, then this fill here, your motif fill, can still do the trick, or either one of these other decorative fills. And so I'm just going to do the motif fill again, because that's what most of them have. And then I'm going to just choose something that maybe is a design that I know is going to give me good coverage. And so I don't have a lot of open holes. And so you can see that. And now it's stitching first. So it's stitching last. And so I just need to send that to stitch first. Now, this is a decorative stitch, so that's why it looks like that behind our design. But it's a tight stitch. You can see through it when we get close. And this particular one is going to give us enough coverage to tack down the nap. So even though that's not the normal nap blocker, it still will serve the function to flatten out the nap of your design. And you still want to stitch it in a color that is close to the background color. So I'm going to zoom out here and let me undo. And then zoom back in. And so I just wanted to select the blue stitching and then change the color of that, because we want that to be similar to the background fabric. Okay, so that create outline function, and I filled it with a motif for this particular option here. Now, if you have Special FX software, Special FX has the built-in Mylar fill. And so Mylar is very similar to a tatami fill. It just doesn't have the underlay. So that's a great option for the nap blocker in your Special FX software. And you can see as I zoom in that it's a fill stitch, but it's kind of open. So you can see the kind of the little bit behind it. Let me change it to a different color, and then we'll be able to see that behind. You can see the white peeking through. So the idea is that it just doesn't need to be a solid fill. It doesn't have to be that dense. Okay, and then that can create a nice nap blocker there if you need to. So if you're creating this kind of knockdown stitch or nap blocker, you want to create an outline and then fill it with some sort of fill stitch that has a loose density, but enough to actually flatten out the nap of your fabric to give you this nice foundation. Okay. Now, the last thing that I wanted to show before we answer a few more questions here is those motif stitches. So the motif stitches that are built into Word or I'm sorry, to Perfect Embroidery Pro and My Quilt Embellisher, you can create your own custom ones. Again, there was a few months ago, I talked about creating your own quilting fills. So you can go back and rewatch that presentation for a completely different use of what we're about to do. But this was a user request. So I want to talk about creating a custom motif. So let's go over to, let's just go back to this heart shape here. And I'm going to fill this with a motif. So motifs can be two things. We're filling the shapes with the motif here. And you can see over here in my drop down list, if I change to a different one, then it changes the fill pattern there based on the design that I select, okay? But you can also have a motif outline, okay? So not only can you have a motif fill where it fills the shape, and in fact, let me just do two different shapes here. So I'm gonna go up to my artwork tool and then click a heart shape, and then I just click and drag on my workspace, and then I create the heart. So I'm gonna copy and paste and do another heart, okay? So motif can be fill. So I'm going to go back and do the fill for this one. And it can also be an outline. So you can do a motif outline, which looks like a decorative stitch around here. And if you own Perfect Embroidery Pro, you can create your own custom motif shapes. Okay. The trick to creating them is that you want them to be really small and they need to start on one side and end on the other so that they can link up. Okay. And so the easiest way, so this is only part of Perfect Embroidery Pro. So I'm going to open up a new page. In Perfect Embroidery Pro, I have this option for special files. And then I have the ability to open a motif and it takes me right to that list of all of those motifs. I'll change it to the extra large so we can see them. This is the one that keeps popping up first, but I'm going to use this diamond here because it will, I think makes it's simpler, so it'll make more sense. Okay. So when you open it and you select it, this is always a good way to figure out or to remind yourself how to create them. This is only about a 1/4 inch wide and not quite a 1/2 inch, 4/10 of an inch tall. So you want these to be small, and these are run stitches. If I turn on my options for my shape tool here or select my shape tool, I can see that the start is on the left and the stop is on the right. Because when we repeat this over and over and over, the machine can start and end and then immediately start the next motif and the next motif because it does a repeat. Okay. So if we go back over here, it's going to end here, start on the right, end on the left. So if we go zoom in here, it'll start over here, end over here, and then immediately start this one. Okay. And the same thing is true here. So the whole thing that you need to remember is that you want it to start on the left and end on the right. And then this is a small kind of object. Okay. So now let's create a shape and save this for our built-in design. So I'm going to do a star shape. Okay, so I'm going to use my drawing tools. Now you could manually draw this, but I'm not a good manual drawer. So I love to use the things that I have in my software to help me with this. Okay, so here I've got a star shape. And so let's make it kind of small. So let's make it a 1/4 inch. Okay. And then click apply. And I'm going to convert that to a run stitch because all of our motifs are run stitches. So I'm going to convert that to a run stitch. And then let's look at the shape tool. Let's select the shape tool and we can see the start stop point. Okay. So the start and stop is down here at the bottom. and we want it to be start over here and end over here. Now, I know that some of you guys are out there saying, well, if you do that, it's going to overwrite. And yes, it does have to, because in order for it to connect, it needs to start here and end here. Okay. Otherwise, it's going to jump in the middle of your fill. So now I'm going to save this to a motif. So I'm going to choose File, and I'm going to choose Special Files and Save Motif. And I'm going to give this a name. I'm just going to call this my AJ01. And so anything that I create in my software, I usually put my initials in front of it so that if someone is asking where it came from, I know it was one that I created. And so then I'm going to click Save. And it saves it for that internal format for my software. Okay. And so now hopefully I don't have to restart this. Let's just go back to like this example here and choose our heart. Okay. And now from my options here, if I scroll all the way down, I see here's my AJ01 that we just created. So now when I select this and click apply, it fills that with my star. And then I can also do the same thing with the outline. I go down to AJ01, I click apply, and then you can see that it's connected with all of my little star pieces here. And you can change the pattern length of those. Maybe you don't want them so big. That's over here in your properties area. And the same is true for the fill as well. I can select it and I can increase this number and it'll space those a little further out. So, okay. So that's how you create a custom motif shape that you can save in your software. Perfect Embroidery Pro is the only program that has the ability to save those file formats that are embedded in the software so that you can save and expand on your library of designs that's in there. So, so that was a request for someone who was hoping to learn how to create custom motif shapes. So hopefully that helps you learning your software. So, and then I see that Polani said, yes, I have a Solaris IQ Visionary. Yes, I want to enlarge it. So yes, you can resize the design in your embroidery machine. There is an option to resize it and recalculate the stitches, or the option to not. I would say, Paulani, contact your machine company that you purchased it from. So your store that you purchased your Solaris from, then reach out to them and they can walk you through the exact steps on how to do that. So we are just working on our dime software here in Software Success, but certainly your machine can resize. So definitely check with your favorite quilt store or the place that you purchased your machine. I'm sure they could walk you through it. So great question. So our machines are so powerful these days. So they do so many different things. So, okay. So that is the last thing that I have for you. And so I was just looking back. I don't see any additional questions that popped up. So Linda Johnson says she loves the echo stitching. So I agree. Definitely. So it's a really nice feature from the My Quilt Embellisher for sure. So, and then Susie Q says, I'm learning to use my machine. I have a journey. So, oh, that's awesome. Another really great machine. So sounds like we got some newbies here as well. So, and thanks for joining, Paulani from Hawaii. And so hopefully you can get the answers you need on your machine. So, all right, so let's flip back over to my presentation here. And just as a reminder, before I talk about that, so the features that I was using today, I'm using a lot of different software. I know that that can get confusing, but it's only show one program when so many people have different softwares, and screen is actually the different programs that I used and the different features I used today. So take a screenshot of this or take a picture with your phone, and you can refer back to this if you want to. So the nap blocker and the auto embossing, those are part of Perfect Embroidery Pro and Word Art and Stitches for the nap blocker. The auto embossing is part of Special FX, and creating your own motif and actually saving it so that it comes up in your library of options is part of PEP. Now, the other features that I use to manually create some of these designs, the nap blocker and the emboss design, you can do with a combination of creating an outline and filling it with a motif design or either fill stitch. So those options are there. We got lots of different options for creating those things manually. So again, you can take a screenshot here, take a picture, and refer back to that for the tools that we use today. So, all right. So in a few weeks, not two, because we've got an extra week this month. So the first and the third Tuesday of every month is when we do Software Success. So next month, the first Tuesday, October the 7th, I will be back here, and we're going to be talking about embellishing paper. This is something that I've gotten several questions on, and it's about stitching on cards. And here on Software Success, we aren't specific about the stitching process. We're more about creating it in your software. But I do have some tips for creating different designs that are great for embellishing cards or paper if you want or are interested in that topic. That was another viewer request, and it actually had several people that asked for this topic. So I thought it would be a great one to do as we are approaching the holiday season. So join me back here October the 7th for that episode. Now, as always, I want to say again, I was using quite a few of our Dime software today. You certainly can try any of our software by going to the program that you have in the shopping area to the lower right, and there's an option to try any of them for free, a trial version. But if you want to purchase any of the programs, first and foremost, check with your favorite brick and mortar dealer. So support them if you can. It is very hard in this internet day and age to run a brick and mortar business. So certainly support your favorite brick and mortar dealer first and foremost. If you don't have one near, you certainly can check out our site and see our specials on any of our software programs. So, all right, guys. So until we have another Software Success, I'll say bye for now, and thank you all for being here.